It's a sweltering summer here at Film Swap. We're turning up the heat with two sizzling summer classics. I need a drink. Wait a second. I need a drink. Welcome to Film Swap Podcast.
Here is a motion picture film.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel.
Listeners, and welcome to Film Swap. My name is David Seeley, and I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed co-host. He is the ecstatic gaucho himself, and his name is Mr. Jonathan Pritchard Barrett. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. How's the temperature there over at your place?
It's hot. Very hot.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm still trying to recover my normal body temperature after watching these two very hot, sizzling summer classics.
Nice.
Because that's what we're talking about tonight. We've picked a really sweltering double feature of steamy, hot, classic cinema. And these are two really great films that we've decided to swap. The remit literally was that. I texted Jonathan and I just said, it's summertime, so let's pick a couple of films that have summer in the title. And that was literally our only parameter that we set for our theme this time is literally, It's got to be a film that's got summer in the title. But then, of course, as it happens, we both went away and then we came back and we both suggested films that actually really do fit really well together and make a really fascinating double feature. I think thematically they have a lot of strong links to one another.
Yeah, they fit very well. And not only was your original parameter very sort of loose, but the way I chose mine was very serendipitous as well. Because basically I just went on to Amazon Prime, put in the search, I put in summer, and there were a few films that I thought weren't suitable, and there was like two that I thought were. And I thought, yeah, I'll go for this one. And that's literally how I chose it. But it just seems to fit your film perfectly. It's ridiculous, actually, how well they go together.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And they are both classics, although one of the films, the second film we'll be talking tonight, which is my choice, is perhaps one of the all-time great classics of the cinema. It's Ingmar Bergman's Summer with Monika. And it is, I think, very thematically linked with our first film, which is a classic as well. I think maybe nowadays it's maybe forgotten a little bit or has kind of fallen under the radar a little bit, which is why I think it's great that we're going to talk about it tonight. But it is an absolutely cracking, good film. Yeah. Really, really fascinating story of summer romance, which quickly pivots into a harrowing revenge tale. And it's absolutely extraordinary film, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a first-time watch for me, and I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan to introduce One Deadly Summer.
Yeah, well, One Deadly Summer, it's a French film. It came out in 1983. I think it's set, in 1977. And it's based on a novel with the same name by a French author called Sébastien Japrisot, I think. So I haven't read the novel, but basically it has Isabelle Adjani in it, one of her earlier roles.
That was something I said too when Jonathan he texted me and he said, "This is a film I'd like to pick," and it's and he said it's got Isabelle Adjani in it, and it's this and it's that, and I was like, "You had me at Isabelle Adjani." It was sort of like as soon as you say her name, it's like, okay, I'm in. I'm up for it.
Amazing, what a talent. So,
Yeah.
and also her sort of co-star is Alain Souchon, who I don't think I was aware of really, but he's very well known in France, I believe. Isabelle Adjani won a César Award for Best Actress. The César Awards are like the French sort of BAFTAs or Oscars, or the national sort of film awards, basically. And it was a big movie. It was, I think, the second highest grossing film of the year. It won four César Awards actually, and it was nominated for another five. So it was in back in 1984 of the year of the awards. It was a big deal.
Mm.
So it's a terrific movie. It's set in sort of small town France, almost sort of village level France, in the region called basically it's in the south of France, and in the sort of like quite a hilly area. And Isabelle Adjani is this young woman. I think she sort of moves to the area, and as soon as she turns up, everybody's head sort of like it's like when somebody walks into a bar in a western and the piano stops playing and everybody turns around, a bit like
Yeah.
that. Everybody on the sort of street sort of stops what they're doing and watches her as she goes past, because
Yes.
she's basically strikingly beautiful, I think we can say.
Yes.
And anyway, essentially, she sort of falls for Alain Souchon, who's a sort of car mechanic, and well, that's one of his jobs. He's got about three
Well,
jobs.
it might be more correct to say that he falls for her.
He falls for her. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
that is yeah. The whole town falls for her, and he's one of
Yeah.
them. And so he works as a mechanic, fireman, and works in the cinema as well, taking tickets, I think, or sweeping up, something like this, maybe both. And so the sort of first part of the story is their sort of affair, their summer together. Um, but the story, it turns out there's a bit more to her backstory than meets the eye. And there's this sort of basically sort of revenge story, as David says, basically plays itself out sort of over the second half of the film, I suppose. And it's a absolutely terrific movie. I'd never heard of it. Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime. I watched it with sort of a couple of ads, but it was okay. And yeah, as the New Yorker reviewer said at the time, uh, Vincent Canby said that Variety said, Isabelle Adjani is astonishing in the central role.
Mm.
And I think that is a good description, apt description, basically. And yeah, what do you think, David?
Well, you're absolutely correct, and so is Variety in that she is absolutely, utterly, and absolutely, just totally extraordinary in this film.
Yeah,
Not just in terms of her just acting, obviously at the risk of sort of running foul of sort of the zeitgeist of now, the me too-ness of now.
yeah,
But Isabelle Jeannet is just absolutely just extraordinary looking woman,
it
and
is.
extraordinary in this film. She's just absolutely just extraordinary specimen of womanhood. Is that a nice sort of polite way of putting it?
Well, I'm not sure, but it's definitely true, I would say.
Yes,
Yeah.
just extraordinary. And I loved the shifts in this film because it kind of does start out as this kind of romance, in a sense, this
Mm,
sort of small town romance between this sort of a girl of, shall we say, dubious reputation that
yeah,
kind of comes into the town. Every single male person in the village, and actually some of the females as well, as it turns out, desire this girl. And she's incredibly provocative. She sort of walks through the streets and into bars and into parties and stuff wearing these extremely revealing clothing and
yeah,
things. And she has this really sort of affected walk, like sort of hyper sexy walk that she
yeah,
does, which is really quite amusing
yeah,
at the beginning. And she obviously just, everybody just like their mouths are agape by looking at this woman. And you can tell right from the beginning that there's something not quite right about her. There's something
Yeah,
because she's a little bit abrasive, her personality,
yeah,
and this young man totally gets smitten with her and starts to pursue her. And even the way she talks to him and the way she treats him, you sort of in the back of your head, you're saying, something's not quite right about this girl. She's,
yeah,
you know, and you kind of feel that this guy is setting himself. As a matter of fact, even in his narration, because his character kind of
yeah,
narrates a lot of the plot of the story along the
yeah,
way, you kind of get this sense that uh, there's going to be problems
yeah,
further on down the road.
yeah,
And as the film progresses, the tone slightly shifts from this sort of kind of romantic, sort of comedy drama kind of vibe. It
mm,
suddenly kind of shifts into much darker territory as the film progresses,
very much.
and that's what I thought was really interesting
Yeah, the way
about
they
it.
did that is very clever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because she just gradually at the beginning, she starts asking these odd questions and she starts referring to things, and you kind of think, oh, well, what's that about? But as the film progresses, you gradually learn more and more about this girl's background and her family's background
Mm,
and what her kind of motivations are for some of her behavior and some of the things that she's doing.
yeah,
And so that's where she really it just becomes a completely fascinating sort of not wanting to give too much away for people if they haven't seen it, but it kind of turns into this um, incredible revenge story with a lot of really sort of kind of interesting twists as it progresses towards the end.
yeah. And I guess one of the sort of themes of the film is sort of small town or sort of village life in sort of rural France and the sort of dark underbelly of that.
Mm,
Because it's a sort of community where basically everybody knows everybody,
mm,
and what that means for everybody. Because I guess lots of us live in places where that isn't the case, but when it is, it sort of means all sorts of unusual and unexpected things can happen.
mm,
And yeah, it's really extraordinary. I love these pictures these of small town life and the sort of disco. They have the sort of touring disco. They don't even have a
mm,
disco. The disco turns up once a month, which they have to all take advantage of. And it just sort of rang very true. Sort of having been to France, visited the place a bit, it just seemed very authentic to small French villages somehow. And yeah, I love the way that her sort of character gradually reveals more and more of her sort of issues, shall we say.
mm,
And this happens partly through the voiceover, because I think that actually is an aspect that comes from the book, because the book I think is narrated by three or four of the characters in the story.
mm,
And so, yeah, her boyfriend does some narration, she does some, and I think I don't remember who the other ones are. But yeah, there's partly the narration, and partly the sort of there's sort of intercutting as well, isn't there? Where you sort of see before you get to see later on what's happened to sort of cause this state of affairs. You sort of get these little snippets of um, what has happened.
mm.
A bit like Nick Rogue, he sort of was a great one for sort of chopping in.
Yeah, it does play. It does. The narrative just does kind of jump back and forth a little bit because some of the characters sort of relate stories from the past at certain points. And there's also quite a harrowing moment in one of these memories is quite harrowing and shocking, and it plays very directly into the Isabelle Adjani's her character's motivations and the things that
Yeah,
are driving her and infesting her sort of character and her attitude
mm,
towards people. and it's quite amazing. And what I thought was really interesting too, that I was thinking about afterwards, was the fact that in the beginning of the film,
Yeah.
your very much your empathy falls in with the bloke, doesn't it? As he's sort of winning over this very strange girl who kind of
Mm.
who's kind of a little bit sort of quite an interesting character, and quite sort of speaks her mind very abruptly,
Yeah.
and her she's very sort of, what's the word, sort of footloose and fancy free,
Yeah.
and kind of unpredictable in her nature and in her behavior.
Yeah.
And your sympathy very much falls in with him, because you do get that sense of, oh, this girl's not quite right, and he's really probably, you can understand why he's sort of attracted to her.
Yeah.
But her behavior and her abruptness and things, you would think that those would be red flags for someone who you'd be like, saying, yeah, this is a really, attractive, sexy woman, but she seems like a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
like she might be a bit of a problem. So your sympathies are kind of with him, and the film, I guess, too, kind of plays into that as male, as men, how we would look at these situations. But as the film progresses, it kind of gradually shifts, and you begin to feel more empathy for her, and
Yeah.
she kind of, and then you start to see the men, including him, in a completely different way, and
Yeah.
he starts to make some really questionable judgments and decisions, and his behavior changes. And so your empathy through the course of the film completely shifts, and you begin to sort of sympathize with her more.
Yeah.
And that is something which I thought the film does quite skillfully and quite gradually. And
Yeah.
one of the things that made it really, really interesting.
Yeah. It makes it quite contemporary as well, doesn't it? Yeah. It's a very moving film as well. It's sort of exciting, but it's sort of
And there's a limits of his own, his own failings and his own weaknesses kind of become more to the fore as things progress, because he's not capable of dealing with some of the issues and some of the things that come up as the
yeah.
film goes on.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought was really interesting about it. And like you say, like I alluded to, sort of, the Me Too sort of movement now, and the fact that people's, quite rightly too, their attitudes are changing about the way that men, and certainly men in positions of authority, their behavior has come under more scrutiny. And I think that this film kind of does that as well.
I wrote down it's 56 minutes in where it all becomes sort of clear what's and the sort of tone changes from sort of lightness to darkness. And but there's still humour throughout the film, isn't there? You've got this sort of, because the boyfriend is of a family and who are all quite eccentric. He's got a sort of deaf aunt and a sort of cycling mad brother, and he's got
Who never wins a race.
never wins a race. He's got a sort of clapped out old car as well, but a very beautiful sort of but clapped out back car, and somehow that there's sort of jokes to be made there, and yeah, it's good. So it doesn't suddenly turn into a horror film or something. It sort of keeps its uh, sort of grip on reality, as it were.
Mm.
I really like that.
And could you not just feel the heat in the, like the film just feels,
Yeah,
hot. I mean, obviously it's been quite warm here during the summer, and we're watching this film, but all the characters are always perspiring,
yeah,
and just the way that the film is very bright and the colors really pop, and it just feels hot
yeah.
throughout the film. Like you just feel this overriding sense of sweltering heat
Yes,
in the film, in the imagery, and in everything about the film just feels hot and
Yeah.
sticky and sweaty.
Well, Isabelle Adjani, oh sorry, old Alain Souchon's character goes off to fight fires. In his role as a fireman for sort of
He does.
half a week or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, these are forest fires, not sort of building fires or anything. And yeah, that's I mean, turn on the news today, and there's fires in Spain and Portugal, and I'm sure there's fires in the south of France as well.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really hot. I mean, the Isabelle Adjani character, she's constantly seems to be sort of dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
Sort of, it's almost that these outfits will just sort of slip off her because they're just too sodden.
Or just stuck to her, just full
That's it.
stop. Just
Yeah,
yes. And she wears some extraordinary outfits, and this is what struck me about the fact, because both of the lead female protagonists in both of the films that we're talking about tonight are just these incredibly vivacious, sexy,
yeah,
women who and their characters are quite similar in a lot of ways. Um, and what's interesting about this one is at the beginning of the film, like I said, she's kind of comes across as this bit of a kind of dippy, and she has this kind of ridiculous sort of hyper sexy walk that she does with the swiveling her behind, and
yeah,
it's all very affected. And then, but as the film progresses and her character becomes more layered, and you learn more about even her performance shifts, and she goes from a lot of these sort of really girlish qualities and things
yeah,
that you really really start to sympathize with her, and she really brings that out, and it's just an extraordinary performance. Like, just she's just an incredible actor, actually.
yeah.
Isabelle Adjani. I mean, you mentioned before we came on, some because you said you hadn't seen many films that she'd been in,
No,
but you did mention that you'd seen Possession, which is a kind of a horror film sort of that
it's a
she's
lot.
in with Sam Neill, and her performance in that too is just so
Yeah,
just extraordinary. That moment where she's in the subway or something, or in some sort of building or flat, and she just has a complete total sort of meltdown.
yeah. That scene is very famous.
Yeah, it's rightly quite an iconic moment in cinema. That scene is just so extraordinary, and
Yeah,
because it was all done in sort of a single take, just on her, and just like it's just extraordinary that this woman just had no fear of doing anything really in films, did she? She just completely goes into it,
yeah,
doesn't she? So,
yeah.
so
It's extraordinary stuff.
yeah.
Really, I guess there's that similar sort of elemental, sort of primal character in this role as well, isn't it?
Mm.
She sort of
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can't remember the last time I've seen her. She really doesn't seem to. I mean, obviously she's getting a bit older now, I suppose, but I don't really know if she's working much anymore. I don't really remember the last time she kind of.
yeah. Look, according to Wikipedia, she's been in one or two films. One this year,
Oh, okay.
three in 2023. So yeah, she was in a Francois Ozon film in 22.
Oh, okay. Well, it'd be great to see some things. I mean, maybe if they're French films, maybe they don't necessarily make their way over here. They don't get
Yeah,
as wildly promoted
yeah,
as Captain America movies or whatever.
yeah.
So it's just about keeping up with things. But
Mm.
she's just an extraordinary talent. So anytime she's one of those people, so if I see her name in something, that automatically I'll be interested in seeing
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
because
Well, I
she's
definitely like the idea of watching Peter von Kant.
well, brilliant. So anything else you wanted to say about One Deadly Summer?
No, it's really good. You can at the moment, if you have Prime. You can watch it for free. Has been on Netflix as well. And yeah, it's a film until last week I'd never heard of before, but it's really good. Go and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I concur. I just, again, it was one that I'd not seen before, and I was quite happy to watch it. And but it's a very grown up film. It's not one you can sit and watch with the kids.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
But yeah, it's just a brilliant story, well told.
Yeah,
Really interesting characters, amazing performance from Isabelle Adjani,
yeah,
and like some good twists at the end to kind of keep you sort of it doesn't quite go in the direction that you expect it to go,
yes,
um, which always keeps things interesting.
yep.
And I think it's just a really, really cracking good film. It was actually interesting. The night I watched it,
Oh, yeah,
it was late. I started it quite late. It was well after 10 because
right,
for various reasons we had things going on. And by the time the kids got to bed and everything, and I sat down to watch it, it was quite late.
yeah,
So I had every intention of I said, oh, I'll just start it tonight, maybe watch the first half,
right.
and then we'll park it and come back to it tomorrow. But actually, I couldn't switch it off. I just totally got completely engrossed in it. I just didn't even think about the time, and I
Mm,
just carried on watching it. And so it didn't finish till well after midnight, which is
brilliant.
very late for me nowadays. I very rarely stay up that kind of late.
Yeah,
Um, so that's the kind of film it was. It was just I just completely got engrossed in it and
yeah,
didn't even think about switching it off. And so it's just a cracking good film, good
definitely,
watch. Great. Well, I think what we need now is a little bit of freedom, a little bit to just run away from it all and
definitely.
sort of, like not be tied down to this podcasting gig. We need to go off and go and flit about in nature. What do you think?
I think flitting about maybe on a boat in nature.
Oh, yeah, that'd be all right. That'd be all right. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we, when we come back, we'll maybe do just that. Only we're going to do it, of course, from the comfort and safety of our own houses and our
Yes.
own sort of podcast. We're going to talk about Ingmar Bergman, perhaps Ingmar Bergman's first sort of big breakthrough international success. So, a film from 1953 called Summer with Monica, an all-time classic, Ingmar Bergman, and you can't get any more hotter and summerier than Summer with Monica. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about Summer with Monica.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, we'll be back in a minute, folks. Stay tuned.
Hey, film nerds! Film Swap is now on Letterboxd. It's where you'll find capsule reviews for every film we've covered on the show, plus themed lists based on each of our episodes, and our essential cinema list featuring the films we think are absolute must-sees. You can explore the themes and dive deeper and even drop your own swaps and suggestions in the comments. Got a perfect pick for one of our themes? Tell us. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd, hit us with your hot takes and submit your swaps. It's like Criterion Closet, except only more chaotic. Just look for Film Swap Podcast on Letterboxd or use this handy dandy QR code. There's also a link in the comments. Hidden gems, forgotten classics. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd and let's get nerdy. You can follow the Film Swap on social media. We're on Twitter and TikTok at Film Swap UK, on Instagram at Film Swap Media, and on YouTube at Film Swap_podcast, and at Facebook at Film Swap the Podcast.
And we're back. Welcome back, listeners, and welcome back, Jonathan. It's part 2 of our sizzling, sweltering summer double feature of hot, steamy, classic films.
Hammy.
And in the first half, we discussed One Deadly Summer with the extraordinary Isabelle Adjani. And now we're moving on to none other than Ingmar Bergman, the master,
Yeah,
one of the great master filmmakers. His first, really, this is his first kind of breakthrough film. This was kind of the film that kind of put him on the map, shall we say,
yeah.
certainly internationally, if not in Sweden. But this was kind of like a film that caused quite a stir because at the time, although it might seem relatively tame by today's, even in comparison to One Deadly Summer, really, it would seem quite tame.
Yeah.
But actually, at the time, it was a bit scandalous. It caused a bit of a scandal and controversy because of its
Imagine.
frank depiction of, you know, desirous activities, shall we say, between consenting adults. And, and it was considered a bit risque
Yeah,
because although the film doesn't have a lot of outright like nudity or anything in it, it does sort of have highly, shall we say, imagery that teases quite substantially.
yeah.
Is that a good way of putting it?
Yes, I guess so. It does. It's suggestive, and there is some outright nudity.
There is a little bit. There's a couple of bare bottoms
Yeah,
and a few sort of brief flashes of nipples and things.
yeah.
But generally speaking, by today's standards, I think most people would probably find this film relatively
Same.
tame.
Yeah.
But in 1953, when the film came out, it was scandalous. It was outrageous. Some
Yeah.
considered it,
Well, if you
and
think of sort of British films at the same time, they were there was a lot less bare bottoms.
yes.
Let's put it that
Yes. And it's not just that, but it's about the context as well, because this is a story about two young people who fall in love,
way. Yeah.
and neither one of them have particularly nice lives going on at the minute. They both have very dull, sort of menial jobs.
Yeah.
They're not treated particularly respectfully by their colleagues and by the
No.
members of their family and things. And they're feeling a bit fed up, and they kind of meet each other, and they decide on a whim to sort of just pick up and run off.
Yeah.
They quit their jobs and go off. The fellow has his father owns a boat, and they just sort of go and run away and go and spend a summer living on a boat and traveling along the waters of Sweden, I guess rivers or lakes or.
The Stockholm Archipelago, I believe it's called.
Oh, okay. There you go. I'm sorry, I'm not really up on my Swedish geography, so yeah, I'm at a bit of a loss there. But certainly looked very beautiful there in some of the very lush and stunning cinematography in this film.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful
Very
film,
nice. Yeah.
as one would expect from Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah.
And also Ingmar Bergman before this, I guess really he was making more sort of lighter kind of comedies and romantic films. And he was maybe had more of a reputation as a writer. He'd written some screenplays for other directors.
Right.
And this film was his first sort of big breakthrough film, as I said. And it was a film that kind of started to establish some of the overriding sort of themes and things that he would develop in some of his later, great classic films.
Yeah.
But this was kind of, in a sense, is kind of where it all starts to really kick off with Bergman.
Okay.
This is a really interesting film that really, uses a lot of sort of clever techniques to really express the inner sort of psychology of the characters. And as I said, it's quite frank depiction of the
Mhm.
relationship between these two, and it's a really beautiful and quite moving film about a carefree summer, which eventually turns into, uh, much like life, disappointments and failures and
yeah,
things don't quite work out. All the hope and the promise of a beautiful summer eventually, you know, moves into fall, shall we say?
yes. Well,
And
because the other film, previous film, just stayed in summer, didn't it? But the mood changed. This one, the
it did.
mood changes, but it's sort of the mood changes when summer has finished.
Yes. Yeah, kind of summer kind of represents in this film that sort of that all this hope and promise and freedom and sensuality too, like not
Yeah,
just between the two main protagonists, but just in nature itself. There's lots
yeah.
of beautiful imagery, as I said, and
Mm.
beautiful forests and rivers and
Rocks.
nature really expresses the kind of what's going on with the characters. It creates that ambience and that sort of vibe visually, as well as what's actually the interactions between the characters and the dialogue. So this is proper filmmaking stuff. This is
Mm.
a master at work, shall we say, someone who uses all the tools at the disposal of filmmakers, right?
Yeah,
From the lighting and the editing and the dialogue and the different close-ups and placements of the camera. Everything just works perfectly to really express ideas and express the story in a really powerful way. So it's quite a remarkable piece of filmmaking.
it really is. Yeah, um, I'd never seen it. In fact, my sort of I admit I haven't seen that many Ingmar Bergman films. I think we reviewed Fanny and Alexander for the
We
podcast,
did. Yeah.
and I've seen the classic uh, The Seventh Seal, and
Mm.
I think that's it. That's really shameful.
Really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
for some reason he's got a reputation as a bit of a gloomster, but I don't find them gloomy. None of those
Yeah.
films. I mean, from my memory of the Seventh Seal, it's actually quite funny. This one
Yeah.
is sort of a lot of it's very carefree. I mean, there's a sort of it's not all happy, but
No.
there's sort of generally a carefree mood to it. And I loved Fanny and Alexander. It's really sort of earthy and amusing again, but lots of shifts of tone. So it's not it's just
Yeah.
not gloomy, basically.
Well, no, I mean, and certainly this applies to this film, but a lot of his films like deal with quite very universal themes about people and their relationships and
Mm,
their hopes and their all sorts of things are expressed in his films,
yeah,
which is kind of why he is considered one of the great masters because his films resonate, I think, on a completely different level
yeah,
than just your average kind of
movie,
sort of whatever. These are films that have a lot of substance and ideas,
yeah,
and and really cut to a lot of truths about human nature and about human behavior and about different periods in people's lives and the ups and downs and the things that we experience. And I mean, I don't think calling his films gloomy is maybe some of them are. There are certain ones that you could directly say are pretty gloomy and
right,
depressing,
yeah,
but certainly I don't think that that's a fair assessment at all. So that's a reputation that's not really deserved. I don't think at all.
yeah. I think you're right.
I think his films are lovely, and this film is lovely, and it has a bit of a sort of the ending is a bit. I mean, it's because I mean we've all been there. We've all had failed relationships. We've all had
Yeah,
sort of hopes and dreams that didn't quite work out the way we'd hoped, and
yeah,
we end up later on in life reflecting on those things and saying, "Oh, if only, this had worked out differently, or if only, that, or
yeah,
oh, I really liked her, and I really thought we had something special there, but oh, it
yeah.
didn't work out," and and you feel kind of a bit, you know, what's the word? You might feel a little
Nostalgic.
sort of tinge of disappointment and
Yeah,
sadness about that, but at the same time you move forward and you move on to other things, and
yeah,
Life takes goes in directions you don't expect. And Summer with Monica really encapsulates that really well. It's about, a very intense and exciting time in these young people's lives when they meet each other, and it captures all the stuff that goes in with that, like with the lust
mm,
and the excitement and the, you know, you kind of feel like anything's possible.
yeah,
And then, real life comes back in, and all the sort of practical things about life kind of come back in and affect the outcomes of these things, don't
yeah,
they?
yeah. They do, they do.
So,
Yeah, it definitely has that recognizable trajectory of
yeah,
sort of relationship, and it made
yeah,
me.
absolutely.
I like the fact because it's sort of young people, and I guess at that stage there weren't really that many films about sort of young people, and because this was 2 years before Rebel Without a Cause, but it made me think of Rebel Without a Cause when we were watching it. There's one bit where they're out because they're basically the first sort of 20 minutes, whatever, starts in Stockholm, and then they set off on this boat ride into the Stockholm archipelago, which is actually quite a long way from Stockholm. It feels like it. There's not many buildings there. There's not many boats, and
Mm.
it feels quite remote.
No, it does feel like they're kind of literally out in the middle of nowhere. It's not a very built up area. And they are literally at times able to, sort of romp around the beach with no clothes on. And I guess they don't seem to have much fear of anyone coming
No,
stumbling upon them
exactly,
or embarrassing them or anything like that.
exactly.
So they do just seem to be out in the wilderness
Yeah,
to a certain extent.
yeah. I think they meet sort of come across one house, and then they meet sort of a handful of people really. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's one bit where they're out there, and she says, "We've done it. We rebelled,"
Yes.
and which is sort of basically her perspective. That's her sort of way of looking at things, and sort of trying to rebel against the system. Uh,
Yeah.
whereas he's a bit much more of a sort of conformist character, much more sensible. Uh,
He is. Yeah.
but
But he does have that sense of freedom when he does do it. When
oh
she
yeah,
kind of pulls him along into this adventure,
yeah,
he gets caught up in the excitement and everything.
yeah,
But he's also the one ultimately who kind of brings it all crashing back down to earth, so to speak,
yes,
because he is his character. He is a bit more of a pragmatist and a bit more,
yeah,
um, we need to sort ourselves out. We can't carry on like this kind of thing.
yeah. Well, I wonder how many other films. Is this the first film where there's in the sort of 50s where young people were talking about rebelling? Is it? Is it?
Well, that you bring that's interesting because this is obviously predates the kind of the flower power generations and all the
Mm,
stuff that came after it, in the 60s and 70s
yeah,
about that kind of idea of just rebelling against the expectations and the
yeah,
conservative kind of lifestyle that
mm,
that people kind of get caught up in.
yeah,
And they do sort of rebel against that and say, like, there's got to be more than this. Let's just get away from this and
yeah.
you know forget about this. But ultimately the film, it doesn't work out
No,
because they've got to eat, and they've
leave.
got to they and there's a little surprise that comes along at one point in the film where where responsibility
Thrust upon them.
becomes a kind of oppressive sort of thing that puts a damper on
Yeah,
their fun.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they basically, yeah, as you say, they got to eat, and there's one bit sort of towards the end of their time out in the thing where she said they're basically cooking mushrooms, so they've just been picking mushrooms,
Yes.
and and that's sort of all they've eaten for sort of days on end. And
Yeah, they're reduced to sort of sustenance kind of lifestyle of just literally scourging for just a few scraps of,
yeah.
food, whatever they can find in the forest or along the, whatever they can catch.
But well, they don't
So,
catch fish for some reason. That's what sure
no,
fishing would be a bit better option than scavenging for mushrooms. But anyway,
yeah, yeah, and a little bit more filling too, as well. I would have thought as well,
yeah, definitely.
you know, but but
Yeah,
but so we talked about when we were talking about the first film, One Deadly Summer, the
yeah,
fact that Harriet Andersson in this and Isabelle Adjani's character in
yeah,
One Deadly Summer have a lot of kind of similarities.
yeah,
The most obvious and the most, base, if you will, sort of thing is that they're both incredibly sexy, sexualized women, aren't
yeah,
they?
yeah,
And you really see at the beginning of the film that these men get drawn to these very vivacious, free spirited, unpredictable, sort of, exuberant character
yeah.
that these women represent. And they kind of are an archetype in a sense of
They're
the
both of
male.
them an archetype. They're not. They're
Yeah, of a male fantasy, aren't they? That's kind of what they are, is like they kind of, they're just highly sexualized,
yeah,
very, very, very sort of, desirable and attractive in a way of like, that you could totally understand them being smitten by these women
yeah,
at the beginning. But at the same time, just like in One Deadly Summer, I found myself at the beginning of the film saying, "Oh, dude, this girl's a bit much. Like, there's a bit,
yeah,
she's a bit like in just her attitude and the way she speaks and
yeah.
she you kind of have this kind of sort of vague sense of red flags going off,
Yes,
sort of saying that, oh, maybe not all is right here. You better be careful, mate,
yeah,
because you
yeah,
can definitely see the appeal,
yeah,
but at the same time, you're kind of like, I mean, maybe it's someone my age and with my experience, I can recognize those red flags easier and kind of go,
yeah,
because I think we've all had our share of situations where you sort of get attracted to people who maybe
yeah,
aren't necessarily going to be good news for you,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's sort of maybe easier to recognize that as a spectator watching that now, whereas when you're caught up in that moment you can totally understand how you'll be kind of blinded by your
yes,
more base sort of instincts,
yeah, yeah,
and not see the other sort of side of things. So that's where the film kind of rings quite true as well, I think.
yeah, yeah. It does. It's. I guess it's funny because it's not exactly realistic because it does have this sort of very beautiful cinematography and it sort of makes you think her sort of she seems to be this sort of almost like a sort of nature spirit or sort of representation of the earth
Mm,
or something like that. Um,
yes, yeah.
but at the same time, but it also has this, as well as sort of prefiguring the rebel without a cause and the sort of youthful rebellion that you see in some sort of films. It also has a little sort of kitchen sink in it. Back at
Mm,
when it goes back to Stockholm and their domestic arrangements, isn't it? They're sort
mm,
of like stuck in this sort of pokey flat with sort of nappies hanging off the sort of
mm.
wardrobe or whatever it is. And yeah, it's really remarkable, very beautiful, very powerful, and yeah, he's an interesting director. I guess he's one of the greats, but interesting in the sense that his plays or sort of is quite happy to play with a sort of realism and something more theatrical and stagey and I don't know, sort of metaphysical, something like that. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're never sure where you are. which one, if it's talking about the grim reality of life, or and then or it's more of an existential statement.
Yeah, you could kind of interpret it both ways because I think it's quite striking at the beginning of the film when it shows their lives. You can totally understand where they're coming from because they're both kind of caught in these situations. Like in her case, her family's not very well off. Her father likes a drink. She
Yeah,
has a lot, they have a very large family, so a lot of kids, but they don't really have a lot going for them.
yeah,
And she's kind of feels just stuck in this rut, and she's in a job where, I mean, it's just appalling, like certainly again just referring to this sort of the modern kind of Me Too perspective,
yeah.
just that you can see just how appalling this poor woman's situation at work, where these men that she works with literally
Amazing.
assault her, like they physically assault her. They reach at one point, a guy literally sticks his hand up her skirt,
Yeah,
and one man grabs her breasts and sort of pushes her onto a table, and like it's like he's basically sexually assaulting her.
yeah,
And this is all just sort of, all these men just think it's okay, acceptable to treat her that way.
yeah.
And
It's
you can understand where she would just be like, kind of totally get fed up of that.
definitely.
And and in his case too, he works in this. I guess there's some. It's some sort of a. Uh, they sell sort of dishes and vases and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah,
And he's just, his job is packing up crates to send to people who've bought these things, and everybody just treats him really appallingly as well. They're just really horrible to him. They just, he can't even turn around without someone having a go at him about something. And just completely sort of, you can understand where they both kind of say, oh, is this all that life has to offer? Let's just get out of here and go and have some fun.
yeah, yeah.
you know
Absolutely.
but the film you could interpret in two ways, because you could interpret the ending in one way, that freedom and that moving away from that sort of expected lifestyle could never work, because ultimately people just get dragged back into it and they can't really escape it. But at the same time, they did, and they do for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
And that bit at the end, the mirror, the scene in the mirror, when he looks in the mirror and he remembers, you can look at that as kind of a sad, wistful thing of him thinking back and saying, "Oh, that was really wonderful, and I've lost that."
yeah,
You can also look at it like he had that as well.
yeah.
He's got that, whatever life throws at him.
He's already always got that. Yeah,
He's always got that memory, and that that sort of wonderful weeks that he spent free
yeah,
with this incredible woman, having this incredible time,
yeah.
and nobody can take that away from him,
No, no, no.
even though maybe it's gone now, and he may never,
Yeah,
life might not offer that kind of freedom and that sort of again, but
yeah,
he had it.
yeah, yeah. He did. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
so
it's really a terrific movie, and also only 97 minutes, which is a good thing
it is, yeah.
in my book.
Yeah, because I remember you saying, can you try and keep it not too long? And I said, oh, this one's only 97 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, ah.
Because, yeah, I mean, One Deadly Summer is a little bit longer, actually, isn't it? It's
It's,
it's a couple of hours long, but you don't notice it.
no, no, no.
Yeah, I try. Like, the thing is about time, it's always going in. Those are the kind of considerations you. So I had that the other day. My son started reading a book,
Oh, yeah,
and he was like, "Oh, it's like 400 pages long, and it's a big, thick thing, and it's like this big. It seems like this big, giant mountain that
yeah,
needs to be climbed." But
yeah,
the reality is, because that's what I told him. I said, "Well, with a book, you just don't worry about how many pages it is. Just start at page one and just go page by page and just read it and enjoy it."
That's
and
it.
don't worry about how long it's going to take you to get to the end.
Yeah,
And it's kind of, you kind of have to think about that with films as well, because if you look at One Deadly Summer, after the first 10, 15 minutes, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was just totally engrossed in
yeah,
enjoying the story, and I
that's
didn't
true.
worry about, what time it was or how long it was going to be. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think, yeah, I'm quite guilty of that sometimes too, just sort of looking at things and going, oh, that's 3 hours. I'm not going to be able to do that. Or, that's, certainly I would never watch any Bellatar movies if I thought like that.
All time
But
complicated. Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, was there anything else you wanted to say about Summer with Monica?
No, I really enjoyed it, and it's yeah. I guess it's got that similar sort of the square and the free spirit sort of theme that you get in One Deadly Summer, uh,
Mm,
and that sort of I guess there's a sort of looking at mental health, and it's yeah a great summer movie, and it's strange that we had this extraordinary um, coincidence of choosing two such similar films, and I just almost literally picked it out of the hat.
yes, it is amazing. I mean, that's part of the fun of Film Swap, though, hasn't it been? It's like
Yeah,
when we pick our two films, even when it's not conscious,
yeah,
there is always these things that tie them together that we can,
yeah,
that thematically or contextually somehow the films do kind of end up fitting together somehow.
yeah,
And I think these two really go good together. There's 30 years apart between them,
yeah,
but yet at the same time, they certainly in the main female protagonist, well, maybe in the male protagonist as well,
yeah. I'd say so.
there's a lot of sort of similarities in their characters and in their sort of, how they're drawn into
Yeah,
this story. And it's only in and you're right, there's a real element about mental health and about
yeah,
well-being in these films, and
yeah.
about coming to terms with your past, and
And sort of
that which
society,
really
how society reacts to your sort of freedom,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah, definitely. I mean, both certainly the two female characters, because they are quite, have these personalities of being quite free spirited and open. How other people respond to that,
Yeah,
who are more uptight and who are not, who have, more conservative sort of feelings about
yeah,
how what's appropriate and what's right and what's wrong, and how they react to these central characters too, is quite interesting in the two films as well.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, they go. It's really interesting double feature, and folks, you should really go and check these films out.
definitely.
Um, um, if you're interested in seeing them, and you should be, you can go to our Letterbox profile and look at our little capsule reviews that we'll post on there as the show goes live.
Yeah,
And that will tell you in your area, wherever you live, whether, because kind of half our listeners are in North America and half our listeners are in UK and Europe. So wherever you live, you can look at our letterbox profile, and it will tell you on the film listing how you can access the film, either on streaming, or if you're like me and old, you like your physical media. Certainly, Summer with Monica is available on Blu-ray from the BFI as part of their little Bergman sets. They have two or what is it, three or four box set collections that make up, the majority of Ingmar Bergman's filmography.
right.
In America, you can get the Criterion, the Sorry, I can't get it down without trashing the place, but there's what's it called? It's called Ingmar Bergman Cinema, and it's a great
Okay.
big huge box set, 30 Blu-rays with not all, but the vast majority of Bergman's filmography is in that set,
Very
and
cool.
it is absolutely, I think every home should have one. Really, every home should have one sitting up on their shelf beside their complete works of William Shakespeare and their, Dickens collection, and you know, um, every home should have one really because Ingmar Bergman is just one of the great filmmakers,
Yeah,
and
really extraordinary.
you can't really go wrong with him. So many great films,
Yeah,
and you should check some of them out as soon as you can.
I will, because I've only, as I said, I've only seen three.
Oh well, you definitely have some catching up to do, my friend. You've definitely maybe perhaps we'll in the future we'll do a Bergman specifically devoted to Bergman, so you can get a couple more in.
Brilliant.
Because he's got so many great films. Just amazing body of work.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of body of work, there's something I think that I'd like to start doing at the end of the show, because obviously we're about to wrap up,
Yeah.
and people will start to think now that we're finished this episode. You're probably listening at home or on your way to work or something, and you're thinking, "Oh God, now what am I going to do until they do another episode?" What I thought might be interesting is because now we've got quite a few of these under our belt. I thought it might be interesting to that each of us could recommend previous episode of Film Swap that we think that you might want to go back and listen to.
Good idea.
So while you're waiting for the next episode to drop, so Jonathan, is there any particular previous episodes that you think, either because they tie in loosely with what we're talking about today, or just one that you think maybe more people should go check out?
Well, one episode that I think people should check out is the something swordplay one. What was that called?
Cinematic Swordplay.
Cinematic swordplay. And I,
Yes, that was a very early episode. I think it was like sort of our second or third episode.
second or third episode, and the reason I liked it is because it's two great films, and but also not that many people watched it or listened to it,
Yeah.
and I feel like
Yes.
that's neglected, and it deserves a bit more attention.
Well, to be fair, because it was one of our very early episodes, we obviously, not a lot of people sort of found it and
Yeah,
probably listened to it, and probably retroactively, not a lot of people have gone back to listen to that one either.
no,
I don't know if they're put off by the sword play thing or what, but yeah, what were the two films we talked about? Were Ridley Scott's The Duelists?
Ridley Scott's first feature, The Duelists,
Yeah.
and your one was called, was it
It was Harry Carey, wasn't it?
Harry Carey? That's it, Harry.
Yes, yes. So both really, really great films
Yeah,
that are worth checking out. And yeah, definitely, good conversation.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah,
Um, and for me, I think I would recommend. We did a great. Again, this is a fairly early episode, but
yeah.
we had Amelia Eichler from the United States,
Oh
who's a
yeah,
projectionist,
oh yes,
came on to talk about the real experience, real being REEL, the
yes,
real experience. And that was a terrific episode. We had a really great conversation with her, and we talked about a great film with Peter Sellers
yeah,
called The Smallest Show on Earth, and also
nice.
a film called 1 Second, which is
Yes,
a Chinese film that is just a beautiful, beautiful film that I like a lot. And I'm still waiting for a physical media release on that.
yeah,
So, whoever out there owns the rights to 1 Second, please, will you just press a few Blu rays and send me one?
yeah,
Because I love that film, and I would love to have that in my, sitting on my shelf for
yeah,
whenever I want to watch it,
yeah.
because that's a beautiful film, and it was a really great episode. And should really reach out to Amelia and catch up with her, because we haven't
Good idea.
spoken to her for a while, and she's a very cool person indeed. And it'd be great to maybe see if we can coax her back to the show.
Good idea.
But in the meantime, folks, go and seek those old episodes out because they're great.
Yeah.
And on that note, folks, we've got, I'm talking about guests, but we've actually, I know I keep saying this, but it's so painfully true that we are in the process of trying to organize it. The thing is with organizing guests is that sometimes it comes down to just finding the right time when everyone can get together and sit down and be able to have a chat.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially when there's time zones involved, it can be a bit tricky. So we've had a few instances where we keep trying to get things organized and it never quite works out. But we are definitely working on having some really cool guests coming on the show, as well as some old friends who will be coming back to join us for some conversations.
Yeah.
So by all means, now is a good time to hit that follow or subscribe button and make sure that you don't miss the next episode when it drops, because it's going to be great. Whatever happens, we're going to be talking about a couple of really, really cool films that we think you should go and seek out.
Yeah.
So by all means, join us.
Please do.
Yeah, and until then, please take care of yourself, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. And now we're going to go and cool off, and I'm going to go and lie in a bathtub full of ice water and and open all the windows and let some fresh air in. And we will be back on Film Swap very soon.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, folks, and take care.
Great. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Film Swap podcast. If you like this podcast, please consider giving the show a rating or leaving a review. This helps other listeners find the show. Binge-worthy and better with time, our past episodes are packed with deep dives, hot takes and fascinating themes. Whether you're a long-time listener or just jumping in, there's a topic and a classic film to suit any taste. Explore the Film Swap back catalogue today. Learn more at filmswap.uk.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrills.
All the things these nerdy middle-aged men get up to.